Hey, welcome back to another episode of SLMA Radio. We have a rotating series of programs. This month, our monthly show is Outstanding Outbound, the only show that takes a look at, well, what's happening in the outbound world of sales these days. With our host, Anne Vanella, the author and CEO of the Vanella Group. She's going to bring her expertise to help us explore this growing field. Give us a few controversial points of view, I'm sure, along the way as well. Hey, Marianne, how are you?
I am excellent. How are you?
I'm good. You know, I'm always, I always get a kick out of talking with you on this show here because you do present a contrary narrative to what we hear. Outstanding outbound, forget it. Outbound's dead. All I'm trying to do is get inbound. I just want order takers. I don't want people actually trying to reach out. Is that tipping at all, or is that still the prevalent wind?
Well, you know, it really depends on leadership and what is their vantage point and understanding of engagement. So if you look at most large companies, they have an outbound function. So the Fortune 500 companies, they have an outbound function. Large tech companies, they have an outbound function. So it definitely is a critical component to identifying opportunities. And there's really a unique element to having those conversations and outreach is you're able to see where your prospect is in the planning cycle. So it's not a bunch of guesswork and scoring based on, you know, while that's valuable, I'm not saying that it's not valuable to track the digital interactions that your prospects have, but you can also glean a ton of information just from conversation. And then that can enable you to put your prospect in exactly the right content stream so that you're doing the right thing at the right time, so that you're in the right place at the right time when they're going to start making those final decisions on what they're going to buy. And, you know, a lot of that I find is not something that is really taught in sales training, and it's a lot of soft skills.
Well, that's really the point of today's show is what you didn't learn in sales training. And I think there still is a lot of sales training out there. You can certainly go see it online. You can certainly take seminars and read books. But I would suspect all the big companies still have, like they had a million years ago, the kind of Xerox or IBM training sales schools, the training process they want you to follow. But what don't they teach you in that? They teach you how to close. They teach you how to prospect. They teach you how to ask qualifying questions. But I don't know that they teach you a lot of the things you're talking about. Yeah,
and, you know, when I say soft skills, it's more, you know, do you understand the psychology of engagement and what happens when you call someone? I had a client once that said, you know, they can't imagine doing the kind of work that we do.
Yeah.
And I asked them, well, do you call people you don't know? And they said all the time. And so, you know, that's all we do is call people we don't know. So it's not, you know, the idea of cold calling has this whole icky kind of.
Right. Because you're interrupting somebody. You're suddenly appearing and asking them to drop everything they were doing and listen to you. And I think people are hesitant to do that, just like they're hesitant to jump up in a crowd and say, hey, look at me. Some people aren't. Some people it comes natural. But I think most people, if they're invited in, they're happy to talk about their product. They're eager to talk about their product and to learn. But this idea that you're going to interject yourself, you're going to roll the dice and see if you can get somebody on the phone. I think that's what scares everybody.
Yeah, and there is a way that you can have those conversations. I mean, we do it all the time, and it really has to do with your vantage point as the person initiating the conversation and really understanding what you're stepping into. So, you know, I look at it like you're puncturing their bubble of their day, right? Mm-hmm. So what's going on, what they're working on, they're really super busy, and you're an interruption to that. So it's not that prospects don't take calls. They just don't take bad calls.
Yes,
so
right.
How to start off a bad call is starting it off with an apology.
Sorry, did I get you at a bad time here? I'm sorry to interrupt you. Yeah.
It's like that's saying, I'm going to give you a chance to hang up on me right now.
Right.
And it also really creates this class distinction if you call your prospect and you apologize. I get emails that they apologize for sending me an email. Or people call and they apologize for calling, and I know you're so busy, and it's like, why talk to me like that? Because that puts you, you're not talking to me
in a subservient role, right? Yeah. Please, I'm sorry, and it also says that what I'm saying is not very important. I think that's what so many of these people don't realize. If you come in that point of view, can you give me a second? I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I know you're really busy and everything. Well, then you're saying that this isn't important. But if there was a fire outside, you'd run in the door and you wouldn't say, I'm sorry I'm interrupting you, but there's a fire outside. I'm sorry I'm interrupting you, but there's something terrible happening and we got to evacuate the building. No, you'd come in loud and screaming and say, everybody, listen. I don't know that there's that sense of what I'm going to tell you is important enough to interrupt you.
Yeah, and I have an exercise that I do with the training clients that I have, and because a lot of them have an idea of what they want to accomplish when they engage with companies, but a lot of times there's so many missed opportunities to just really dig deep and develop that art of conversation, because you can pull so much information out that there are often opportunities in areas that you would think there's not. So I'll give you an example is when we do work with clients that have marketing automation, for example, through adding a layer of conversation into that. So we'll look at the different scoring, whatever nomenclature that they're using for their lead ranking, and then however they're attaching scores to digital behavior. We can find about 15% of active opportunities by including some conversations in that. So there are a lot of things that are missing, and calling is becoming the last thing that teams do, which is kind of interesting. Like I know a lot of teams aren't doing any calling. They're doing all of their prospecting via email. They're waiting until the timing's right to call them. And it's like, if it's a large enough deal, you should have an outbound component going on around that for sure, because you're missing an opportunity to have a very meaningful engagement, and you're going to miss deals that nothing else is going to pick up other than a conversation.
Well, and you can cut through the clutter. People are bombarded by messages all day long, and we're trained to just sift through them. No. We read the caption or something quickly, and we just eliminate them. But if you can break through and do it in a way that doesn't abuse their time. Yes, I'm interrupting you, so I'm going to be quick and I'm going to get to the point, and I'm going to present some value to you because I really believe this is something you need to hear that you're otherwise going to miss in the noise. I think if you take that approach, there's value you bring, and the people on the other end will respond to it. I know I do. If somebody calls me unexpected and is quick and to the point and has thought through something that really applies to me, I might listen to them. But when they start this long process, hi, how are you, Mr. Roberts? Glad to know you. How's your day going? It's like,
I know, it's like torture. And that's not a peer level business call.
Yeah.
And, another challenge, I thought it was interesting, the Bridge Group does a report on SDR benchmarking and metrics. And one of the things that, and this is something that really stood out to me, is the average SDR experience at hire. And back in 2009, it was 2.4 years, which is still pretty
new, yeah.
Pretty new. And now in 2016, the one that they released was 1.3 years.
Wow.
So somebody's barely got 15 months of experience under their belt. And those are the people that get put on the front lines to call senior level executives and to have a peer level conversation with them. And often it just doesn't happen because those soft skills aren't there.
Yeah, right.
So, you've really got to work on that with your sales organization. And a way to do that is some of it starts at hiring. So how do you know that you're hiring people that can engage with people at that level?
I don't think any of us really know. I'm sure that you do, and I'm sure you're going to give us some ideas. But I'm going to put some truth serum in the coffee cups of a bunch of sales managers out there and say, tell me the truth. Do you really know how to hire for these skills?
Well, it's interesting because I find that some salespeople are good at selling themselves for the job, and
yeah, that's
they're
true.
not as great at developing and gaining access to accounts in their territory. And what that has to do with are a few things. Is first, I see this quite a lot, is organizations kind of assume that reps bring this kind of system of operating with them. Like, how do you work your territory? How do you make sure you have equitable coverage of your accounts? How do you do this? So organizations need to get really granular about what does the work structure look like. So not assuming that people know how to do that, but saying, okay, this is how this happens. This is what happens when you get this outcome, when you get this result. So you give them this framework, and it enables them to not have to create something that maybe is inconsistent with what other people are doing. Like, a lot of times I notice that, they'll start people and say, okay, here's your database, here's your sales intel platform, here's all your login information. Sales training is a lot about products and about, the battle card of, okay, if they're doing this, then you can do that. And here's these product features, and here's these weaknesses, and this is what we want to sell into and all that. But there's this whole critical thinking engagement piece of it that isn't even addressed often.
I think you really hit on something there, and I'll go even deeper. I don't think there's much training or methodology behind territory management. So many of us, I was a sales rep in my youth for a couple of different companies. I was part of that churn and burn mentality. They just hired a bunch of us and threw us out, and some of us succeeded and most of us failed. And then I went and got another job when I failed at another company and failed for them as well. Because they, just what you said, they taught me about the product, but they didn't tell me about the process. Nobody taught me how to go out and knock on doors. Nobody taught me how to engage with people on the phone. That's all we had in those days. And now you've got to do social media, and you got to do email and Twitter and other things that potentially as well. Who teaches you that? Do they even know how to do that, or are they just expecting you to figure it out?
It's just kind of how things have been done. And so, it's about selling is about knowing the product, and you've got to be able to map certain requirements that the prospect has to certain ways to uncover that they have that problem. So however you have that conversation, and that part is, that's a given. Like, we know what these features are going to address, or we know what the results are. But the thing that really needs to happen is what happens when you want to have a one-on-one, just peer level conversation, and how do you steer and navigate that?
Yeah,
and
right. How do you start it, and then how do you navigate it quickly to get where you want to go? Too many of them just wander around hoping that they'll pick up on some buying signal or some opportunity here.
It's interesting. I was listening to a podcast yesterday, and they were talking about account planning and planning before you go into accounts. And I mean, that's something that's just a given. If somebody is missing out on that opportunity to research, there's three things they need to know. They need to know about their prospect, they need to know about that company, and they need to know about that industry. So it does take 10 minutes or however it's going to take to get that information when you get on the phone. So do a quick LinkedIn. Where is this person from? Is there any kind of overlap with anything that you could mention? So maybe they worked at a previous customer of yours, or maybe there's something that they did that's really relevant to bring up. So you want to be able to make that connection. Also, you need to know about the company. So what are their recent press releases? Like, what kind of stuff are they dealing with just as an organization? that would be interesting to mention, or just to factor into how you talk about something. And then the industry. So are there changes in that industry? Are there things happening in the industry that are relevant to this conversation? Is there some compliance issue coming up, or some regulatory compliance that they have a deadline around that you could address, or whatever that might be?
And
so
I'll give you an interesting parallel. You obviously produce a podcast here now, and many others do. The process of producing a podcast is you got to do some background and some preparation. You got to have some questions in mind. You got to know who you're talking to and find out what they want to talk about and find out what you want to talk about. But so many sales reps who are, in effect, going to go in and interview somebody and see if there's an opportunity have no clue who they're talking to. They're just shooting from the hip and trying to start a conversation. Hey, how you doing? What's going on? Hey, I just wanted to follow up. That famous, I'm just following up.
Yeah. And it's not like, there's some reps that are awesome. I mean, I've certainly
clearly, yeah.
I've certainly had experiences working with certain people in organizations. It's great. But I also get a tremendous amount of bad outreach, and it isn't getting any better. And people complain about it, like, all the spam that happens on LinkedIn now, and all the things that are going on that don't work, that seem to be increasing. How do you stand out from that? And you really do that from having a really quality interaction with your prospect. So, I mentioned hiring. One of the things that I know a lot of companies are doing now is kind of more of a real world test of giving them an assignment and give them a task and see how they complete it, see how they problem solve. That gives you an idea. I know that there's an assessment that I often do before talking with people where, we take them through a series of questions and just kind of, what is an accomplishment they're really proud of? And you can get an idea of how people think and how they problem solve. What is a problem that you solved for a client before? That gives you an idea of, first off, what they think of, and then how they solved it. And so that gives you an idea. So I think it's coming from a hiring standpoint. You can start it off right by making sure that you have somebody with the right mindset of going in. You want to help your client. You want to be able to problem solve. You want them to learn as they go and develop their skills as they go. And you've got to find the person that already naturally does that versus, I need a job.
Yeah, right. I'm eager. I'll do anything. Well, I want to take a moment, let everybody digest that, let that sink in, and then we'll do a quick commercial and come back. And I got a couple other questions about when do we start this and how do we start this? Because I think leadership is just, with that kind of churn and burn, I think they're just hiring a lot of people and throwing them out and hoping some of them succeed. I don't think they give them a lot of product knowledge. They give them a lot of sales basic training, but I don't think they teach them how to get in the door and engage with people, as you say. I just don't see it. Maybe it's changed and maybe I'm missing it, but based on my interaction, the other end, salespeople approaching me, I don't see a lot of good outreach. So let's take a break and we'll come back and see if you can give us some tips about when this should start and how it should start right after this. And this is a quick spot for our sponsor, the Vanilla Group. People who are committed to give back to customers more than just great leads. They give you great ideas like we're doing today. Their objective is to deliver a customized, strategic sales development solution that's sustainable for you. The Vanilla Group solution is designed to invigorate your entire sales operation by providing your sales team with new revenue opportunities. Clearly, that's something we all want. And a continuous stream of ongoing selling activities. How do you teach them to keep it going? Achieving this mission isn't easy. It requires a partnership. And as your trusted partner, the Vanilla Group tries to understand your objectives and meet your requirements. For more information on how they do this magic trick, you can certainly tune in each and every week here to the show or go visit them today at thevanillagroup.com. It's Vanilla, Vanella, vanillagroup.com. All right, we only got a few minutes left. Any tips or ideas of how to start this and how to get the ball rolling?
Well, when I go in and work with organizations, I'll ask them, like, what are some of the challenges they're dealing with? Because everybody doesn't have the same problem. Like, some people are really good with prospects once they get them, but how do you engage them? And I find that engagement piece is one of the most difficult, because it really takes, like I said, those soft skills. You got to understand how to get through barriers, how to navigate these account landscapes, and
how to get a meeting with the right person, how to know who the right person is, so that you're not wasting your time, and how to start conversations. It really is that. Yeah,
exactly. And you have to, how do you interpret the information that you find on your prospect? So I know what a lot of the work that we do is teaching teams how to read between the lines of what you discover on prospects, how to pull something substantial out of your research that you're doing in those minutes before your calls. How do you introduce yourself in a way that you're coming off as a peer, and they're not automatically shutting you down because you opened with an apology, or something that isn't getting you the type of access.
Time wasters. They all they want you to give them 20 minutes. And I'll give you a classic example on LinkedIn. And this is a new way everybody wants to reach me or reach people. So they send these little LinkedIn things, and it's all like, hey, this generic sounding thing, I really love what you're doing, the flattery, kiss, 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 love to get to know you, and let's have coffee. If I had, I would drink 1 million cups of coffee if I accepted every one of these things. I'd be so wired, and I couldn't get any of my work done. As if we all just have endless amounts. Sure, let's just get together and spend an hour together. No, tell me why. Cut to the chase. I just would like to see people get to the point quicker, and then we can decide if we should go forward. But they want to do these exploratory get to know you, how are you stuff, and I just
that kind of stuff is really annoying. And I was speaking at a LinkedIn Live event once, and I used one of those emails as a bad example of engaging with someone, because somebody sent me this really long email, and at the end of it, it's like, you still don't know what they do.
Exactly.
But they want me to block off time with them, and so somebody from the audience said, "Well, look, they got you to read it. Wasn't that the point?" And I'm like, no.
No.
It's like that. I'm using it as a bad example. Yeah. So is that a success? I don't think so.
I'll give you another example. Whether in podcasts or videos or YouTube, we're all sticking in these ads, these messages, trying to get you to pay attention to us. And how many of us really find ourselves just saying, stop? Because they're not. I'm searching for how to change my tire, and here's an ad about toilet paper. It has nothing to do with what I'm looking for.
Distraction. So it comes down to how to develop your soft skills, how to make sure that you're doing something to develop those every day. How do you, not only when you have an interaction and a conversation with a prospect, what do you take out of that actually adds to your knowledge base that you can reuse? And so that's a lot of the work that we do, is teaching sales organizations, how to really fine tune their engagement so that they've got, first off, a lot more conversations going, a lot less sales resistance, a lot less prospects going quiet.
Right.
And how to do the right thing so that you can get in front of your prospects and that they will have that conversation with you. So
I think it's like the art of magic. You don't see people doing magic tricks anymore because it's just not amazing enough. When you see it in person, maybe it's amazing. But when you see it on TV, pulls a rabbit out of the hat, ho-hum, so what? Yeah. And I think it's kind of that same thing. It's a magical skill that takes mastery. I can't just say, well, you stick a rabbit and you pull it out of the bottom of the hat. Got it? Everybody go out and do it. It's not that easy to do the trick. It takes some skill, takes some training.
Work. Yeah, it's definitely it's something that you have to deliberately put effort into to develop those skills so that you are able to gain access to executives. A lot of the complaints that I hear about, oh, people don't talk to you, people won't take calls. It's like, they do take calls. They just don't take bad calls.
Yes,
so
exactly.
How are you not being a bad call for them so that you can have a conversation?
I'll give you the classic, again, after I was a sales rep, I did PR for 20 years. And I'm old school. Nowadays they just flood you with emails and hope one of them gets through the noise here and you call them back. But I found, I was trained to do it old school. We got them on the phone. Now, no reporter in the world wants to be called 50 times a day from 50 publicists pitching a story. So right away, you're intruding and they're trying to write a story. And we would work on how to pitch them in like 60 seconds. It's like VCs. When you go pitch a VC on your funding your company, you got 60 seconds to get their attention and for them to decide whether or not to continue the conversation. I think so many people miss that. There's a speed to this. There's an urgency when you've interrupted. You only got a few seconds of somebody's time. Don't waste it.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's never a waste sitting with you because you definitely reinforce what I've always believed. There is still an outbound opportunity. I think too many of us are just giving up on it because it's too easy to just hit that button on email and send out 1 million of them and hope one of them hits. How do they reach you if they want to learn more about how you do this magic art?
You can find me on LinkedIn. The website is vanellagroup.com. Follow me on Twitter at Vanilla Group.
But don't send you a 20-page LinkedIn request that ends with saying, let's have coffee together. Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, we'll look forward to hearing more. I'd love to hear some specific example. I still challenge you one time to try we should almost do a real-life example of what an outbound call sounds like, because I think there is an art to it. I know there's an art to it. I recognize it when I see it. When somebody does come and call me, for example, to tell me something, and they do it right, I find myself eagerly engaging with them. When they do it wrong, which most of them do, I can't wait to hang up.
Exactly.
All right. Well, I can't wait to hear more. Thanks for joining us, and we'll look forward to more of these conversations and maybe one day having you demonstrate some of these soft skills on the air here.
Looking forward to it.